All right, and next we're going to cover the ls command. So we know where we are, but obviously we want to see things on the system. So to list files that are located in this directory, I'm going to use the ls command. So I'm just going to type ls and once again hit enter, and I get some output. So we see file 1, my directory, and readme.txt here. Now, the reason why my directory looks different is because it's actually a directory. One way that we can get more information about that is through adding a flag. So in Linux, you have a command. Sometimes you can have a subcommand after that to get more information. And then you can also have flags that are added to it to perform additional functions. So in this case, we're going to use the ls command, and we're going to add a flag. So I'm going to type a space because you typically separate the flags with a space. That's how Linux knows it's a separate piece to this command. And then flags are typically marked by a dash. So I'm going to do a dash. And then I'm going to use the L flag. So ls space dash L and then hit enter. And notice I see file 1, I see my directory, and I see readme.txt. But I also see a lot more information. And here we can tell through the output. So we have this dash, a D, and a dash. And I'm just looking at the very first character on the left here. So what the dash means is this is a file on the system. And then the D means that it's a directory. So there are more types. You can have like an L for a link, but we're not going to cover those just yet. So dash is a file, D is a directory. That's probably 95% of what you'll run into on a Linux system. Now, when we look at the next piece of information after the dash or the D, what we see is a repeated RWX, RWX, in this case R-X. This has to do with permissions on the system. I'm not going to jump in yet because I'm going to have a separate video that covers these details, but just know that this information tells us the permissions for the file or directory on the system. The next piece of information that's useful to us is this. This is the username. This is the group. So the username and the group are basically who owns the file, and the group is, okay, what group owns the file? Once again, I'll have another video that covers these topics, but just know that a user can own the file, but you can also assign a group that has a set of permissions on the file. This area right here, this indicates the size of the file. So this is 0 bytes. There's nothing in here. We've got 13 bytes in this file. And then this one, directories can be different sizes, but there are files in this directory. So in this case, it's 4096 bytes. After that, we see the date and the time. So I created these files yesterday evening. And finally, we have the file name or directory name at the end. So that is everything that the L flag lists, which ls-L, the L stands for long. So that's how you can remember that flag when using the ls command. So another useful command that you can use, it's not an ls command, however, it's what's known as an alias. I use it a lot because I typically use ls-L to view the files because I want to know all the information that's there, is to simply type ll. So this should work on most systems on CentOS, Fedora, Red Hat, and in this case Oracle Linux. So rather than typing ls-L, I type ll, hit enter, and notice I get the exact same output. So that's a useful command. Like I said, it's very shorthand, a lot easier to type, especially for me. Like I said, ls-L has a lot of good information that I typically use when troubleshooting, and because sometimes having the wrong user or having the wrong group, having the wrong permissions, knowing when the file was last modified to figure out when an issue occurred and where I should look. That's information that I'm typically looking for on the system. So another command I can use, or sorry, another flag I can use with ls is the A flag. So I'm going to do ls, and because I like L, I'm going to keep L here. So I'm actually going to stack another flag with it. So I'm going to use the -L for long, and then I'm going to use the lowercase a. So this is going to show me all files, and you'll see what I mean here. So I'm going to hit enter. So notice we see a little bit more output, and the files that are here, though, they all begin with a dot. So we got .bash history, .bash logout, .bash profile, .bash rc. The way Linux works is a hidden file is preceded by a dot. So if you begin your file name with dot whatever, that file will be hidden unless you use the A flag to show that file on the system. So in this case, Linux has its own files for this bash, which is the born again shell. That's basically what we're using to interact with the system here. So these files, we typically set them, don't use them again, so that's why they're kind of hidden. We also have these two here that come with this output as well for the all output. Basically, dot is your current directory. So if I wanted to specify file1, I could say ./file1, and that would mean this file right here called file1 is the file I'm talking about. The dot dot, that's used by the system to know that you want to go back a directory. So if I run pwd again, we're in home butler k. And if I were to use dot dot, that would actually take me to the home directory. So we'll get into that a little bit later once we learn how to change directories. But that's just a quick overview of this output with the lowercase a. Because dot and dot dot, typically we don't care about those. We know they exist and why they exist. But another flag that we can use is ls-l again, but instead of a lowercase a, we can use a capital A. And now notice we get the same output, but this time without the dot and dot dot directories, which can be useful at times just to keep the output a little bit less. Another command that I use a lot other than the ll or ls-l commands is it's still going to involve ls-l, but I'm going to add two more flags to this one. So what I'm going to do is I want to sort it by time. So I'm going to add a T. So right now the output is sorted in alphabetical order, and then I'm saying sort it by the time instead because that's going to be more important. But then on top of that, I want to reverse it. So I'm going to use the R flag. And you'll see why when I hit enter here. So I'm going to hit enter. Now, if we look at the files, they're in a different order. They're not quite alphabetical. File 1 and then readme first and then my directory. And if we look at the time, we notice they were all made on October 6th, but this file 1 was made first. The readme file was made second, a minute later. And then my directory was created a little bit later. Actually, it was modified. So the date that's here isn't when it was created. For the files, that is the case. However, the date that's shown in this output will actually be when the file was last modified. So, like I said, this is a useful command mainly because having the new file at the bottom, since your prompt is towards the bottom, your eyes will go to the very first thing above it, which would be the most recent file. So that's why admins typically use the LTR together, because it tells us quickly, especially when you have a lot of output, just the files directly above the prompt. Those are the files that were modified most recently. So, so we've gone over ls and we've seen where ls can show the files in a directory, but you can also use the flags and you can actually give it another path or another directory, and ls will show you the contents of that folder. So in this case, rather than doing ls, I'm going to do ls-l, and let's take a look at what's in my directory. Let's see what's in there. So now what I did here, I also want to share this as well. It's a good piece of information. So the my directory is unique enough to where I can use a shorthand to make navigating the system easier. So ls-l, because it starts with an M, no other file in this directory starts with an M. So what I can do as part of the born again shell or the bash is to hit the tab key. So I'm going to hit tab and notice it autofills for me. So this is an awesome tool. Like I said, it only works whenever your files are unique enough. Once you get to having tons of files in a directory, you'll notice you might have to add a little bit more, or you might type something, hit tab, it'll autofill most of the way, and you might have to add more content. But this does make navigating the system much easier. Just wanted to share that with you guys, just as a fun thing to use, very useful. So back to this ls-l. I want to see what's in my directory, and I want it to give me the long output. So I've got the command, I've got the flag, and then I've got the directory that I want to take a look at. So when I hit enter, notice we get different output. So what I see here are the files that were created and that exist within my directory. And just to show you again, I haven't gone anywhere. If I do ls-l, I still see file 1, my directory, and readme.txt, which is in the directory that I'm currently in. So we're able to use ls and pass it an argument that will tell us what the contents of that directory is. I can also do it for somewhere else completely, so I can do ls-l, and I'm going to use a completely different path. So var log is typically where system files are, and what I'm going to do is just hit enter here, and notice I get more output. So I'm still in my home directory, as we can tell by here, the tilde. I can also confirm with pwd, still in home butler k. However, I can view other directories. This is very useful, once again, like I said, with maybe you're troubleshooting, maybe you're comparing logs for something, or just want to see where files are located because you've got to move things around. So we can use ls in our current directory, we can use it in another directory, and one other thing that we can do is, let's say I've got a lot of files and I don't want to get a ton of output. Maybe I just want to see everything about readme.txt. So once again, I'm going to use ls-l, and instead of giving it a directory, I'm going to give it just the file name. So just type the first few characters, hit tab, it autofills, and now I only get the output for the file that I wanted. Like I said, once again, this is very useful just for getting limited output and seeing the information that we need about that particular file.